Houston. Yeah, I'm audible. All right, good evening. Glad to speak here for you. My session is the most demanded because it separates you from the party. So I'll try to be quick. I'll try. So my name is Sergey. I'm a consultant in security. I'm also an instructor and do many things about security, mostly in the cloud. I work a lot with Microsoft and company and other big vendors. I speak at the conferences like Black Hat, Global Azure, and many more. As you can understand from my name, I'm Russian. Surprise, surprise at this conference. But I speak all over the world. And when I say that I'm Russian, participants, they have some assumptions about me. That was my favorite commentary from one of the conferences. But that's what generally you can expect from my sessions. I prefer to show how things could be compromised, and then what you can do to make things better deployed, and how to fix those problems. All right, and my biggest preference is to show live demos. So you may expect many live demos and not too many slides. All right, so let's start our journey. Oh, by the way, a quick question. Anyone here work with Azure? A few? All right, on the first row. And others, no, never? All right. So, but if you will, then you will know how to do it better, more securely. All right, so as I promised you, I'm going to show you many live demos. That is going to be my agenda. I'm going to show you how to compromise 3 environments. So first, hybrid Active Directory, how to compromise the identity. Then I'm going to show you how to compromise virtual machines. Probably I'll show it to you in the end. And then how to compromise application with SQL Server database deployed in the cloud. So let's start from Active Directory. As I mentioned before, I'm going to show you many live demos. So let me switch to demo real quick. Oh no, one moment. Anyone here work with AD Connect? So you have synchronization to the cloud. All right, so you have hybrid AD. So you probably heard what it is, but maybe others didn't hear about it. But anyone work with on-prem AD? On-prem? Also you? No one else. All right. So, but you know that on-premise we have Active Directory, where your usernames, passwords are stored. So when we implement the cloud, we would like also to have some kind of hybrid environment, and we will have some cloud footprint in our on-premise AD. So we want to take on-prem AD and synchronize to the cloud. And company most of the time use special tool for this called AD Connect. So you may see here on my demo how it looks like. Microsoft Azure Active Directory Connect, which will synchronize my users, their passwords, from on-premises Active Directory to the cloud. But if we make this synchronization, we must connect to Active Directory and have some permissions for this. So let me click Add Directory. So the tool for synchronization creates special account in on-prem ID, and this account will be used to access on-prem Active Directory for synchronization purposes. This account will be created automatically, and you will not know the password. Let me quickly show you this account. So this account was created in Active Directory on premises. MSOL something depends on the environment. And what is interesting about this account? If you look at the permissions of this account, so depends on the features you configured, this account will have different permissions. So for example, if I enable this feature, which is very popular and even recommended by Microsoft, account will have permissions to replicate Active Directory. Do you know what it means, replicate Active Directory? So it's like when you have multiple domain controllers, they replicate data to each other. So in fact, this account will have permissions to make a replication like another domain controller. Why? Let me show you where you can find it. If I go to properties of my domain and look at the security, find out this account on MSOL, and here are permissions configured. So it has permissions. Now, what can go wrong with those permissions? What can go wrong with those permissions? Let me go back to AD Connect server. So if I own this account, which I don't know the password for, I could do something pretty bad in this infrastructure. So let me first show you how the password could be extracted, and then what I can do if I own this account. So let me close that, cancel that, and let me open PowerShell real quick. I don't even need to be administrator. So if I'm a local administrator on AD Connect server, even if I don't know the password for the account, I can still extract it, because password is stored in SQL database in a table called management agent, because AD Connect has SQL database. Here you may find the column called private configuration XML, where there's account name, and another column with password, which is encrypted. But if I'm a local administrator on this machine, I can decrypt the password. So let's see. I have a script for the decryption. Oops, not this one. And look at this. So here's the crazy long password. That's the password for a MS OL account, which used for synchronization. Now, let me switch back. So in fact, now I own those permissions to replicate Active Directory changes. What it means? It means I can replicate information about every single user in this domain, including the most privileged users, like domain administrators. So let's do it real quick. I'm going to switch to client machine. First, open CMD. And let me open that as a different user. Runs different user. Here I need to provide credentials. Let me copy that. Paste that. And paste that. All right, so now if I look, who am I? I'm a user MSOL. So let's first test if I can access the main controller. And no, access denied. So this user cannot access the main controller. But what I can do, I can go to I can open a tool called Mimikatz, and do this. Synchronize credentials of user administrator. In my case, trainer user is the main admin. And look at this. All right, so here is the hash of the main administrator. Do you have any ideas what can I do later? The hashes you cannot really reverse because it's possible if password is simple. That yeah, the commentary was like a reverse it back using rainbow tables, but it only simple password. But there's another technique. If we cannot really reverse it, we can use what is called pass the hash. So we can really just use hash instead of password. Let me show you how can I do it. I'm going to open it as administrator, a command prompt, open Mimikatz again. Before that, let me check that from this command prompt I cannot access the main controller. Say no. Yeah, access denied. Now I'm going to open Mimikatz. Let me clear the screen. Elevate my privilege. And now I'm going to use pass the hash, where I'm using hash. Oh, sorry, it shouldn't be hash. It shouldn't be NTLM. That's my bad. NTLM. So fingers crossed. Now if I try again, access the main controller, yay! So that means I'm a domain admin if I can access the main controller from this command line. So you may say, let me jump back. You may say here, all right, so what? You compromise the main controller. Now you're the main admin. That's pretty bad in the on-premise environment. But you're talking here about the cloud. So how can you access the cloud with those privileges? So if I'm a domain administrator, I can access any workstation on in the network. What if I find the machine of the administrator of the cloud administrator or cloud developer? So that's for developers of this conference. And usually developers, they already have access to the cloud, or developers or administrators. For example, let me show you real quick. If I open command prompt and type something like azvm list, so just show me list of virtual machines, it showed me a list of virtual machines without any credentials. So it didn't ask me for password, didn't ask me for username. If I do the same on this machine, oops, sorry. It should complain that there is no permissions. I am not authenticated. OK, so you must log in first. So somehow, on another machine, I was able to run the command without any login. Why? Because credentials are cached. So the access token will be cached in the user profile. So let me show you that real quick. If I go to users, I know you may not see it pretty well, but I will zoom it. So in the user profile, there's a folder called .azure. And in this folder, we have cached credentials to access the cloud. For older tool, maybe you have CLI older version. Older version doesn't even encrypt them, so you can just copy and paste the file itself. But that version was changed like a couple of years ago. But sometimes I saw the machines that installed older tools. New tool, they finally encrypted. So the credentials here will be encrypted. They will be stored in those files. So they are encrypted. What we can do here, we can execute. If we are administrators, we can still execute the code on the side of this user. Some command like this. The easiest way to do it is to add something like BAT file to auto-run, and so when the user logs in, then this command will be executed. And that will give me JWT token. And if I take this token, jump to another machine, open something like PowerShell. Let's try real quick. Get azvm with PowerShell. So it should say no, it's not working. It's not working. Now, if I try something like this, connect AZ account, and I need to provide access token, and then account ID will be the name of the user that must have access. OK, so let me change subscription as well. Let's clear the screen, and let's try get azvm. So if I'm a domain administrator, I can access any workstation on the network and just steal tokens from it. And even if this user doesn't have permissions to access, I mean the domain admin doesn't have permissions to access the cloud, I can steal tokens from cloud admins. That makes sense? OK. We'll have Q&A as well in the end. All right, now I can jump to the cloud. And now I can continue my journey. So if you don't mind, I'm going to skip virtual machines for now. And I'm going to get back to them slightly later, because that's the less interesting scenario. And let's take a look at the application deployed in the cloud. And my goal will be here to compromise SQL database. So probably the most important part, the most interesting part, stored in the database. And how can I compromise database? Quite often, database that deployed in the cloud, we don't use credentials. Let's say we don't use hard-coded credentials. So application that we have in the cloud somehow must access the database. And the credentials must be stored somewhere. And most of the time, credentials stored in where? Say it. Can't really hear it because doors are open. All right. Let's assume you set key vault, and you are right. if you set a key vault. So credentials stored in the key vault. So where we stored secrets, that's the repository for secrets, and credentials will be stored there. Most of the time, I work with customers, and key vault configured very properly. So it's quite hard to compromise key vault itself. But what I sometimes see, if we store credentials, those credentials must be rotated. So we should not store credentials, the same credentials, for years and years. So we should rotate them. And for rotation, we use special function that will be executed on time, like every 90 days. Every 90 days, every month, depends on your schedule. And we'll rotate credentials every month, every 90 days, every 3 months. So, and quite often I see that that function configured not that good, not that restrictive compared to key vault. So let's jump back to demo. The resources to access this server. And here's the big mistake that many customers many customers do. They really think if they tick this box, then only their virtual machines and their Azure resources will have access to this SQL database. But no. Now, any Microsoft Azure customer in the world will be able to connect to this SQL database. Yeah, I know that's hard. And what was funny, I speak a lot about this at the conferences, and finally, maybe a year ago, Microsoft add this description, add this hint. Let me just show you. Probably I cannot zoom it. Yeah, I cannot zoom it, because when I try, but maybe you can see it. Now they finally tell us about that. It's still a surprise for many customers when they say, oh, really? But at least Microsoft tell us about this. When I start talking about this problem, it wasn't the case, and I want to believe that they changed the description because of me. All right. So what I would like to do, I would like to untick this box, save it. All right, and let's try again. Let me disconnect. Connect again. Yeah, I cannot log in. So normally, your database should look like this. So let's switch back to slides. So if we have this case, which should be in reality, what should we do? What attackers can do in this case? So if SQL is not accepting connections from any other sources, but somehow application must connect to SQL Server, right? Somehow. And how we call it in Azure, we call it private endpoint. So MySQL is configured for private access. So there's a private endpoint, which connects this SQL to network, the virtual network, to this virtual network, PHPDB VNet. And I have application called offsec, connected to the same network, networking. So connected to the same network. So they are in the local, in the virtual network. So let me open this application. Hey, come on, it's just a page. OK, so that's a very stupid application. But if I try to register, let's say whatever, me at whatever, something should happen. Oh yeah, you're registered, so it had connection to the database. It didn't show any errors. All right, so now what I can do, what I can try to do, I can try to compromise the application itself and try to access database from the application. How can I do it? The same method we use with functions. FTP. FTP. And because web applications, they have the same app service service, so they also quite often configured to accept FTP connection. And let me show you what I upload. To application, I upload also some my own files. And the file I upload is called my shell. Do you know what shell is in cybersecurity, in offensive security? Shell, what attackers call shell. It means I have full access to the machine, and I can have a full control of it. So let me type my shell.php, and look at this. Now it looks like I can execute commands on Azure App Service. So this service is managed by Microsoft, and they do a pretty good job to keep it up to date. So I try to find some vulnerabilities to elevate my privileges, because when I try to check ID, like who am I? I'm a low privileged user. I tried to elevate. I didn't find a way to elevate on this. That's the container. I didn't find a way to elevate. But my goal here is to access database. So let's try to find a way to access database. So first of all, this web shell is not very stable. So I would like to establish the more stable shell. I'm going to use my Python shell for it. Come on. Yeah, that's the long command. Now I have a bit more stable shell. I can execute commands. And now what I would like to do, I would like to upload one more tool called uSQL. So uSQL, that's the tool that doesn't require any installation. But I can use this tool to access SQL Server, because other tools like SQL Server Management Studio, SQL Server, different command line tools, they require installation. I cannot make any installation without admin rights. But this tool, uSQL, works without any installation. I just need to drop the file. So let's try. Oops, not here. I'm going to click uSQL, cross your fingers, connected. Good. So let's take a look at the tables I have in this database. Let me open to the full screen and scroll up. OK, so I have a table called registration TBL. That's where all users registered. Good. Let's click on let's take a look at the table itself. Let's table content. And yeah, so we have user whatever that we registered today. And also, just in case, I registered one more user called HL. I did today as well. All right, so that's where we had access to SQL. OK, so, but I promise you, sorry, I forgot to show you the slide. That's the official function from Microsoft for rotation. And you can just find it on the Microsoft GitHub. And I just use this function, but change the code over FTP. Now, so everything was compromised. Everything was compromised except virtual machines. Why I didn't compromise virtual machines? Because nowadays, not many companies use virtual machines. So for new deployments, virtual machines usually not used. But where I see virtual machines quite often is when we make a migration. So migrate from on-premise to the cloud, virtual machines are still heavily used because on-premise we have virtual machines. That's why I would like to show you real quick what we can do with virtual machines. And after that, I will give you some ideas about mitigation and Q&A. Ideas about Q&A. All right, so what about virtual machines? If I look at virtual machines, here's virtual machine I have for a demo. It's Jenkins, they have Jenkins installed. Let me also ask a quick question. I guess hands will be the same. Anyone here administer virtual machines in the cloud? Any cloud, even maybe AWS, Azure? Not you? No? No? Never? OK. By the way, I still have your sunglasses. I can give it back. It's not that bad. But thank you. When you administer virtual machines, the idea of the cloud is to avoid local login. So you don't need to make an SSH or RDP session to make some changes in virtual machines. That makes sense? So cloud providers give you enough tools to do administration without local login, without console login. And one of the features that virtual machines have in Azure is called run command. AWS has the same. I mean, other providers have pretty much the same. For Linux, we can run shell script. On Windows, it will be PowerShell and other commands. So for example, let's quickly check it. If I type ID and run, not immediately, it's not super quick. It takes some time. It might take 30 seconds. It might take even a minute. But this command should be executed. Hopefully, ID will be executed pretty quickly. Hopefully. By the way, while we're waiting, let me break this shell and configure one more listener. OK. So it showed me that when you run command, you even have root access. So you have full privileges when you run this command. Now, if I run command ID, I can run something more interesting, right? Let me switch back to here. Let me clear the screen. What if I run something like this? So I run bash, and I ask bash to connect to my remote machine over port 4444. Let's test it. Nope. It might take time. Might take time. You remember that it didn't happen immediately. Ah, yeah, good. What uname -a, whatever. So now I have full access to Linux machine without knowing the password for this machine. So I don't need to know like username, the password, or most of the time in Linux we use the key to access the machine. I don't need to know. I don't need to know it. I just execute command inside of the machine, and it just connected to my what we call in security command control center, and I can do whatever I like. And pretty much the same I can do on Windows. If I run my own executable, then it will be able to connect to my command control center. All right, so, and here we literally compromised everything. And now what I would like you to advise you with recommendations. So when you work with the cloud, most of the time the cloud itself is not vulnerable by design. Because even if Microsoft AWS or any other cloud providers find some problems, they quickly fix it. So it's not something that is just vulnerable all the time, or like on-prem software that can stay vulnerable because it didn't install update. But what may be in the cloud is that you just misconfigure it. And because it's public, those misconfigurations can be quite dramatic. That's why you need to make sure that your configurations are still safe. About AD Connect, what should you do with AD Connect? AD Connect should be considered as tier 0. What it means? That means that that's the machine where you must apply the strongest security policies. So it's not just a server like usual, like many companies think about AD Connect. Oh, it's just a server. It's not the main controller. It is. It's not, okay, it's not the main controller, but it must be protected in the same manner as the main controller. And of course, try to keep privileges as low as possible, because administrators every administrator in your company should not have access to AD Connect server. By the way, AD Connect, there's a new service called AD Connect Cloud Sync. I have demo for this, but I just don't have time. So if you want to see about Cloud Sync, just let me know, and I will show you that somewhere outside of this room. Then, about cache credentials. You remember I was able to steal credentials? What you can do here, first of all, use separate workstation for administration. It's called PAW, or PO. So those workstations, they usually disconnected from the domain, so they have their own credentials. They have very, very strong policies, and those machines used only for administration purposes. So we don't use it for Googling, for Facebook, and for other stuff. Just for administration with very, very tough policy. Restrictions on the network level, so we cannot really connect to anything except Azure and other maybe clouds that we need to administer. Plus, token I showed you that I was able to steal, it is valid for 90 days by default. What you can do, you may remove you can revoke this token. There's a special PowerShell command for it. If you want, I can share it, and I have it on my GitHub. that can revoke revoke this token. So again, let me share real quick. Remember that, right? I just open CMD, type this command azvm list, and it just works because token is valid for 90 days. And if you constantly work with this machine, this token will be valid forever because it will be also refreshed automatically. So what you can do, every night or every week, whatever, you may revoke the token, and so it will not be valid on the next day. So some companies that really have concerns about the tokens, they just every night they run a script for their privileged users, and those tokens will be revoked in the morning. All right. So about virtual machines, when you compromise virtual machines, keep principle of least so follow principle of least privileges. So in that case, administrators will not be able to execute commands on the virtual machines, and as the result, will not be able to get in. About modifications of functions. Disable FTP. Disable FTP. I see constantly companies that don't use FTP at all, so they use other ways to make a deployment. They use pipelines for deployment, but they still have FTP enabled for some reasons. They just because it was enabled by default, and so they just keep it. Disable it. Oh, about web attacks, web application firewall. That's the bonus. When we have time more than 45 minutes, because application can be also attacked from outside, and in this case, web application firewall also available and can be attacked from the typical web application attacks. All right, so yeah, I have time for questions. It's time for questions. I've been 1 minute over, so yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, question.
We have a question. I'm surprised.
Throw microphone.
Hello. Thank you very much. It was really insightful and a bit scary. So a lot of the power you acquired came from being able to decrypt the password. How were you able to do that? How were you able to decrypt the initial password?
Did you hear about data protection API? DP API. Oh, they all heard questions. Did you hear about data protection API? So data protection API, that's the way how Windows store their secrets. And normally, if you own the local administrator on this machine, then you can decrypt any credentials stored on that locally on that machine. They are encrypted, but with data protection, by the nature of DP API, we can decrypt it if we have local admin permissions on that machine. So the key is we don't need to be domain admins, but if we are local administrators, we can decrypt credentials on that machine. So if you want to learn more a bit about that, so there's a keyword DP API in Windows. Oh, there's even a word decrypt here, but just Windows, DP API in Windows. And that's how Windows stores secrets, and that's how Windows protects secrets. And in a nutshell, if you are a local administrator, you can decrypt, you can leverage data protection API and decrypt it.
Thank you for the nightmares.
Yeah, welcome.
Any more questions? Yes.
Yes.
Anyone in security, as a rule of thumb, takes having physical access to any machine gives you have pretty much owned or pawned the machine.
Yep.
This is a standard in any security environment, especially Windows. What I saw you were doing in the beginning, you were basically using even some files from the Active Directory, and you were trying to extract some information. Was that basically the newest version for the cloud using the AD Connect? Is this the continuation from the old Windows 7 and the Windows 3.11 kind of environments, but you could actually take over from the SAM files the actual password and decrypting it?
Can you please repeat the first phrase, because I think I missed the key phrase.
Okay. Any Windows NT environment based on the SAMS file.
Oh yeah. Okay.
The NTLM stuff.
Yeah,
this was always a vulnerability in Windows in general. This is basically a continuous hack based on this technology, correct?
Yes and no. We here now in a domain environment. So SAM is just a local database. We here work in domain, but quite often most problems in Windows start when someone has admin privileges.
But having access to a domain controller and having the SAM files, then you can do a process escalation and gain what you've just done now.
Yeah, even some file here is not really important. My goal was here to. Oh, there are other ways to continue this attack. For example, I can create new user in Active Directory. This user will be synchronized, and then now I can log into the cloud with this new user. But there are some questions with credentials, so I need to add this user to the right group, and then this group and this membership also will be synchronized, and maybe I will have permissions I need. So yeah, if we control on-prem ID and we have hybrid environment, then we can find a key to the cloud. I would say it's not really vulnerability. The problem here more is configuration in the real world, because Active Directory is quite complex, and administrators need to find a balance between usability and security. And quite often, older environment, when companies didn't really care about security, it's just configured like 15 years ago, and no one want to touch it because they don't want to break it.
Thank you.
Because if you add one more security policy, thousands of clients may just stop working, and you'll have a problem.
Yeah.
That's yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more hands? Please raise. I know everyone wants some beer, but before that, we have 4 minutes more to ask questions.
They said you must do quickly for the questions. Come on, I rush here to answer your questions, so.
All right, so they are shy.
No, they're not shy. They just want to have some sweets. Who wants to have some sweets?
Who wants a cookie? Ask a question, get a cookie.
Oh, oops. Thank you for the question. You want one more?
All right, so thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Don't forget to rate the talk. A round of applause for our lovely speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you.